Hello, and I'm Ted Pilling, and welcome to this conversation that we're inviting you to join with me as we talk, and I talk with Mags Duggan. Mags is a long-term close friend. We've ministered together with the Navigators for over 40 years. We visited Mags, Linda and I, while she was ministering in Taiwan, and more recently we've lectured in the same Bible college. Mags, this is a delight.
Thank you.
This is just a delight for me to have this time with you. Let me just say, we've had a discussion before, a pre-discussion, haven't we, of a conversation. And I think I'm right in saying you're not thinking of all the answers for everybody.
Oh, no.
This is very much your personal walk as a long-term single person. But I think, as I listen to some of that, we have a lot to learn from you.
Okay.
So I'm really looking forward to the time.
Okay.
So can we jump in?
Yep.
Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
Right. Sam Albury, who's an author, wrote a book called The 7 Myths of Singleness.
Yeah.
And in it, he observes this, if I can just read it for you. It says, biblically, the only alternative to marriage is celibacy. But that choice between marriage and celibacy does not mean a choice between intimacy and loneliness. Genesis 2:18 says, it is not good that we should be alone. So since we're not designed to live without relational intimacy, it may be considered that marriage is not the only answer to fulfill that need. So I wonder, what can relational intimacy look like for a single person?
Yeah, it's a good question. And
Okay.
I think Sam Albury's observation is very insightful, because in our culture, if you say the word intimacy, it tends to connect with romantic or sexual intimacy. That's just like a word association. You know, you say intimacy, I say sex, and it kind of goes together. And I think if you're a single person committed to a biblical sexual ethic, then that's really hard. Because if that's how you define intimacy in, romantic or sexual terms, then there's no hope for any kind of intimacy. But I think, relational intimacy is very possible for a long-term single, or any single person, not even long-term. And I think what's helped me is to take the one word intimacy and to break it into 4 words. Into me, see. And I found that really helpful, because when I think of what an intimate relationship is, it's a relationship in which I allow the other person to see into me without any masks, without any pretense, but to see the me that is real me, really me. And for me to have the opportunity to do the same with them, that they would open themselves up like that. And intimacy is about being known and knowing. It's about being seen and seeing, and it's a gift. This kind of intimacy is a gift, and it's possible because God has, like Sam Albury said, we're designed for intimacy because we're created in the image of a triune God, Father, Son, and Spirit, who have always existed together in the most intimate relationship of giving and receiving love and admiration and joy and enjoyment and delight from and to each other. And we've been created in that image. So we've been created with the capacity for these kinds of intimate relationships. And, for me, I have 3 women in my life. They're all married. We've been friends from anywhere between 25 and 40 years. So it's a long-term friendship. And we've been through highs and lows together. We've really seen each other at our worst and at our best. These are women who I've said to them that you have permission to ask any question you want to about my life. And I have promised I will speak truthfully the answer. And that's quite vulnerable. I think that's one of the things about intimacy, is that you're vulnerable, that you're not kind of putting up barriers, you're allowing somebody to really see you. And I think, this is really important for us as single women, single people, Because when you're married, you have somebody there who sees into you day by day and who sees the highs and the lows and knows how to speak to you in it. Yeah. And so I think for us as singles, we need these relationships in our lives. We need these loving, committed, vulnerable relationships in our lives. And I look at Jesus, and in his culture, in his context, at the age of 30, Jesus would be considered long-term single, when you think about it, because most of his friends, most of his contemporaries would have been married at this stage. And I love the fact that he also had 3 really intimate friends. He had Peter, James and John. Yeah. And, they got to come into his life in places that the other disciples didn't. True. So, they were at the Transfiguration and they were in the Garden of Gethsemane. And, in the garden, you see Jesus coming to them and he says to them, I am overwhelmed. Yes. I am in anguish. And, they've seen Jesus, calm seas and winds with just a word. And here he is, he's coming to them and he's got tears on his face and his clothes are all rumpled and he's got snot in his beard. And he's saying to them, I am overwhelmed. And that's a really vulnerable place that he's in. And I love it because, as you read through the Gospels, you just see that Jesus had these intimate relationships. So I think, relational intimacy is very possible for a single person.
Would you say that, you use the word vulnerability quite a bit.
Yeah.
Presumably that would mean you would be careful who you chose that level of intimacy with, wouldn't it?
Yeah. That's why I just have these 3 women.
Yes.
And I think we all need people, whether you're married or single, you need people that you can be vulnerable with.
Yes.
But it's the kind of vulnerability I have with these 3 friends would be dangerous in any other context.
Right, okay.
It has to be, if you think of relational intimacy is loving, loyal, committed, vulnerable friendships. Yes. You don't have the capacity to have that with a whole lot of people.
No.
There's only a few people. And we've been friends for 25, 40 years. We've built up the trust.
Right.
We've built up the vulnerability, the willingness to be vulnerable over many years. And you share a little bit about yourself and then you get a response. And depending on what the response is, you share a little bit more.
Yes.
Until you get to the stage where you can say, this is me.
Yeah.
This is me.
Yeah.
But you can't do that with everybody.
No.
Only a few people. I think only a few people.
That is really helpful.
Thank you.
Great thought, Max. Great thought. I wonder what some of the big challenges have been for you, particularly in later life as a long-term single person. Where do the challenges lie?
I think a challenge that I'm kind of, I'm not sure if struggling is the right answer, is the right word, but dealing with right now is the challenge of how do I steward the gift of singleness at this stage in my life?
Oh, you're going to have to unpack that one.
Well, yeah, because I think singleness is a gift.
Okay.
And like any other charism of the Holy Spirit, it's given to us for the benefit of other people.
Right.
Right. So you read, 1 Peter 4:10, Ephesians 4, Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 2, 12 and 14. They're talking about the gifts there, and that the gifts are given to a person for the benefit of others. So if I've received the gift of singleness, which I believe I have, so if singleness is a gift, then I have a responsibility to steward it well for the benefit of others.
Yes.
So I think, I've worked with this kind of idea of stewarding singleness for, many years. So that's not my challenge.
Right.
The challenge now is how do I steward this gift at this stage of my life?
Right. Yes, okay.
Because, now that I'm in my 70s, I'm realising that I have less capacity.
Yeah.
My energy level isn't what they used to be. And so I'm having to think, okay, how do I steward
Yes.
the gift of singleness with a limited capacity and less energy? And if I can give you an example that kind of I've been kind of working out, is that another gift that I believe I have is the gift of hospitality.
Okay.
And so it's wonderful being single and having the gift of hospitality, because I love having people in my home. I love it. And it means that being single, I can give undivided attention to them. I don't have to care for anybody else, that whoever the guest is in my home, I can give them my undivided attention.
Right.
So I've had, singles and couples and families. I had a family of 4 come and stay 11 days one time. And I thought that a husband would be really helpful right now, just to take some of the pressure off, because of cooking and cleaning and washing the clothes and everything. But it meant that I could give myself freely without any distraction to the people in my home.
Yeah.
As I'm getting older and less capacity and less energy, I'm realising that I need to be a wee bit more focused in who I bring into my home. And it's like my gift of singleness has to cradle these other gifts in my life, like hospitality and mercy gifts and listening. And so, just the last couple of months, I've had 2 single girls come and stay. And they were both in crisis in different ways. One of my friends is Ukrainian, from Mariupol, and her mum and dad were in Kiev. And so she came and stayed for like 3 weekends on a row. And what was wonderful for both of these girls, women, they're in their 30s, women, what was wonderful was that they could just be in their pajamas without any makeup. They could say whatever they needed to say. They could cry. They could get on the sofa, pull the blanket up and snuggle down and go to sleep without fear of anybody walking in.
Right.
Or anybody disturbing that time. Yes. And they know that whatever they say to me is held within my home.
So
it never goes out.
It's
very safe. It's very safe. It's like, at the end of Psalm 62:8 that it says, God is a safe place for us.
Yes.
And we can be that safe place for people to come in. And so I think I'm learning that I don't throw out my gift of hospitality because I'm getting older.
No.
But I need to modify it.
Okay.
I need to learn to work with it. And this idea of, my singleness cradling my gifts is I'm working with that right now. Does that
modifying
make sense?
it,
yeah.
When you say when you modify it, so I think I know you quite well. For many years.
Yeah.
I can imagine that would be quite difficult to do. Actually, the internal pressure.
Yeah.
To continue at the same level of hospitality.
Yes.
Will be quite strong, wouldn't it?
Yes.
So how do you face up to the decreasing in energy levels and the need to modify with the internal drive of this gift of singleness with regard to hospitality? That must be a hard tension.
I think it could be. I think what I'm finding is that as I'm surrendering this to the Lord, because part of stewardship is surrender, isn't it? Is surrendering your desires and surrendering, like you said, your drive to do this. And I think that I'm just learning to say no in ways that I never did say no before.
Okay.
And so I want to invest deeply in people. And as I'm getting older, the time to do that seems to be getting a little bit shorter.
Yes.
And so I want to really use the time well to invest in the ones I have. And so I'm having to say no
Yes. Okay.
And what I found helpful is because it is hard for me to say no, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. So I say,
I gather.
So I've said to the Lord, would you please sieve out? Would you please sieve people out?
Oh, right. Okay.
So then what's left, I know God has said yes to.
All right. I got you.
And that really helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just one challenge. Do you want some more?
If you have another one.
Yeah, I do.
That'd be good.
I have big challenge is not to stagnate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's for everybody as they get older.
Yes.
You get settled,
Yes.
and you can get entrenched in different ways of thinking and responding and everything. I think that's true for married people as well.
It is. Yes, I think that's right. I mean, yes, it is.
But I think for married people, what is good is that you have the stimulus of each other, perhaps to encourage you. Oh, have you read this book? Or, oh, have you listened to this? And I think as a single person, you don't have perhaps that on the spot kind of,
No, okay.
But I think whether you're single or married, I mean, the challenge as you get older, not to stagnate,
Yes.
but to be open to new things,
Yes.
to be open to new ways of worship, new ways of responding to the Lord in His Word, new ways of prayer, intellectually, reading beyond what you would normally read, watching TV programs that you wouldn't normally watch, just to kind of not stagnate or settle, So that's another challenge.
That's been quite a big issue, hasn't it? I know for some people over the lockdown, where they've settled and now it's very difficult for them to get back into what would have been quote unquote normal life.
Yes.
Because the normal is never going to be normal again.
Yes.
It's always, there's a new normal coming for them and it's hard to get used to.
Yes.
And I think that's probably true, Mags, for couples, for married people as well as for single people.
Yeah,
I think it probably is actually.
Yeah, I'm sure that is actually. Yeah. So
interesting.
So there's that.
But I can see what you're saying about a couple can help each other. They can challenge each other.
Yeah.
Whereas a single, I can understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think then the last kind of big challenge really is A.W. Tozer talks about the sins of the hyphenated self.
You need to repeat that.
Okay, yeah. He talks about the sins of the hyphenated self.
Right.
And he talks about self-centeredness, self-sufficiency, self-righteousness, self-pity, self-absorption. And he calls these the sins of the hyphenated self. And I think we're all prone to the sins of the hyphenated self.
I feel you're giving a series of messages here.
No, but I want to pick out two that for me are a struggle, are a challenge. And I think one is self-pity.
Right.
Because what can happen, I think, as a single person is you get to Saturday afternoon and it's gorgeous weather outside. It's really sunny and it's lovely. And you have no one to go out with.
Okay.
Because, your week's been full perhaps and you've been busy and you've been doing stuff. And you haven't arranged to meet with anybody at the weekend. So you get to Saturday afternoon, you've done your cleaning Saturday morning. You get to Saturday afternoon and you go, I've got nobody to go anywhere with.
Yeah.
And you can feel like, and that's when self-pity can come in, because then you can feel like the rest of the world, is in couples and they're all going out, or even having nothing to do with somebody.
Yes.
And there isn't that. And as a single person, if you're going to go out, you have to arrange it with somebody. You can't just turn to the person sat next to you and go, should we go out for a drive? Because it's your shadow, that you're talking to. So I think self-pity can be something that you really have to push against and resist. Right. And for me, as an introvert, I'm a chronic introvert. So for me to take initiative with people to arrange something is actually quite hard for me, because I don't like to intrude on people's lives and everything. But I'm learning that, one of the ways to push against this self-pity is actually to take some initiative with people.
Okay.
And even if it's Saturday lunchtime, to phone up somebody and say, do you fancy going for a walk? Or, and if they say no, well, they say no. But for me, I have to consciously, deliberately push myself to do that. And then, funnily enough, the kind of opposite of that is self-centeredness. And it's the real opposite, because, you know, one minute you're feeling sorry for yourself because you've got nobody to go out with. But then the self-centeredness is that you can go off and do whatever you want to, whenever you want to.
Yeah.
You know, if you fancy going for a drive, you don't have to say, is it okay if I go for a drive? You just go, you know. Or if you want to stay up till midnight reading and have a bowl of cereal at the same time, you can do it, because you haven't got to check in with anybody. So I think then you can get very self-centered.
Yes, okay.
You know, so for me, you know, these two, self-pity and self-centeredness, I have to really kind of work with.
Mags, this may not actually... I wanted to ask you about issues you're facing.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not sure...
Yeah.
I think at first when I was thinking about issues, I wondered if they were almost the same as challenges, but I don't think they are.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what would be the sort of issues you're facing at the moment as a long-term, single person, this stage in your life? You've very clearly talked about the challenges, got that. What are the actual nitty-gritty issues that you'd be facing?
Yeah. I think one is this feeling of being out of sync with the rest of your generation.
Oh, okay.
Because when I think about my friends of my age, right?
Yeah.
They all got married in their 20s or their 30s. Well, most of them got married in their 20s and 30s. Well, I didn't.
Right.
Then they had children. I didn't. Then they had grandchildren. I haven't.
No.
And so, you know, it's this issue of feeling like I've missed out on what is normal life. You know, that this is normal for people to get married, to have children, to have grandchildren. And you can feel a bit like I'm out of sync with my generation.
Gotcha.
That, you know, that they're all going along this kind of course, and I'm kind of, you know, going off here on my own kind of thing, you know. And it's like the other day I walked past the junior school near where I live, and there were all these mums and dads because it was school out time, and they were all standing round the gates and everything. And I had this real pang, because I thought that's normal for them, and I've not done that. That's not been part of normal life for me. And it's like, you know, I wake up and get up every morning on my own.
Yes.
You know, I eat most of my meals on my own.
Yes.
You know, and I think there's this part of recognizing that your life has not gone on the same pathway that your peers have.
But that's different, Max. Because you said it's not. My life hasn't followed the normal pathway.
Yeah, I should have gone normal.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, it is normal.
Yes.
Your pathway is normal.
Oh yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. For me,
it isn't. It's a different pathway.
Yes.
But it's a normal pathway.
Yes. Yes.
So because otherwise we elevate a certain pathway to being the thing, and if you're not on this pathway, there's something wrong.
Yes.
Just me.
But I think that's the issue, because you can feel like that.
Okay.
And it can be like that from other people's perceptions as well.
Ah, okay.
Because it's really interesting, because it's like, I have a younger sister, she's 6 years younger, and she's married with kids. 6 years younger. But when my mum speaks to me, she tells me, now, Margaret, have you got enough food in? And, you know, is your car okay? And how far are you driving now? Are you sure you're safe to drive like that back? And I asked her once, I said, Mum, do you actually talk to Keziah like this? And she goes, no. And there can be a perception. I cooked Mum a really nice meal. It was a really nice meal. And she was like, oh, this is so wonderful. Yeah. Oh, you did such a good job. And I'm like, she doesn't talk to my sister like that. It's almost like if you're single, you're almost treated as if you're younger.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. And I think as well there can be this perception that you don't, because you're single, you don't have the same kind of emotional depth as some people do. And this was really brought home to me one time when, my niece Jenny, when Jenny, Jenny died when she was 23 and awful cancer. And when she was going through her treatment and through the cancer, I was so distressed and I was just grief-stricken.
Yes, you're right,
It was awful, wasn't it? And I was telling people, please pray, and I was passing on these prayer requests for Jenny. And I was in work one day, and one of my colleagues said to me, Mags, I think you're making a bit too much of this. She's only your niece.
Oh.
I know, and I was really shocked. But that's what he said. He said, she's only your niece. And it was this sense of not recognising that this relationship was so precious to me, because when you don't have your own children, then the children that you do have in your life are so precious and so important to you. So I think that was hard because it was a perception of who I was.
Yes, I'm sure.
As a single, well, I felt it was a perception. Yes. But then on the other hand, talking about my mum, mum's in a care home now. And so I visit her every 2 weeks, and I go, and the other week I was there and I put her socks on and I combed her hair and I put her coat on, I put a scarf around her neck and then put her in a wheelchair, and off we went round Swansea Bay. So I'm pushing her in the wheelchair and pushing her to have this coffee. And as I'm pushing her, I had this thought, I thought, who will do this for me? Yes. Who will do this for me?
Yes.
And I think this is a question that, if you're widowed or if you're divorced and, you're older and you're on your own, I'm sure that if you don't have children or if you don't have close relatives, that's a question that may come up for you as well. But it was the sense of, who will do this for me?
Yes.
And I think it's an issue of who will care for me.
Yes.
But I think the issue can then become a fear.
Okay.
And the fear then is, it manifests itself as a lot of what ifs. What if I fell in the night? Who will notice?
Yeah.
What if I get ill in the night and I can't get to the phone? What if I don't have enough money for care when I'm old and doddery? You can get these fears that rise.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm learning is in, it's a bit morbid this in some ways, but in Psalm 23, it talks about walking through the valley of the shadow of death. And I think when you get into your 70s, that valley of the shadow of death
is real.
Is real.
Absolutely.
And so, and there's a fear. Yeah. There can be fear there. Yeah. And so I'm learning these days is to bring my fears to my good shepherd, who knows how to take me through the valley of the shadow, so that when these what ifs arise, when these fears arise of who's going to care for me, I have to look back at the last 70 years and I have to say, Father, you have cared for me every step of the way. You have always cared for me. And, and Isaiah says that, even when I'm old and grey, you will carry me.
That's right.
You will carry me. I don't need to worry about who's going to push me in the wheelchair. God will carry me, and he will use other people to do that. And I need to trust him for that.
Right.
Because otherwise the fears can be overwhelming.
Yes.
And so I think perhaps fear is an issue. I don't know. But anyhow, I think those are my key issues right now.
Listen, we've talked about relational intimacy.
Yeah.
Challenges.
Yeah.
Issues.
Yes.
Let's finish on a really good note here. What are the joys of being a long-term singleness?
How long do we have?
Keep going, Max.
Well, there's obviously there's the joy of freedom. I have a lot of freedom, and there's a joy of being able to be flexible enough and free enough that you can respond to people and you can be really available.
Yes.
You can be available to people, which is wonderful. It is really wonderful. Yeah. And then I think a real joy is in Isaiah 54:1. It says there, "Sing, O childless one, who has never borne children break out into singing, because the children of the desolate one shall be more of the children of those who had a husband. I have really seen God fulfill that. It's one of the biggest joys of my life. Because I know you're looking funny there.
No, I've got you.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm with you.
And
Go on.
it's so wonderful because,
Yeah.
I've had, spiritual children
Yeah.
who have become daughters to me. And, this Mother's Day, I had 3 Mother's Day cards
Oh, dear.
from these women who really do,
Isn't that special?
who really do look to me as a
Yeah.
mother.
Yeah.
And then I had
Yeah.
also a text from, and a really nice text from a guy who's now in his 50s. And he just wrote, he said, Max, I just wanted to say Happy Mother's Day and thank you for all the years that you've mothered me.
Oh,
And I think that's a real joy, that.
yes. I
That
thought
really
you were going to
is.
say you were out singing.
No, love,
Sorry
no.
for my side.
Yeah, that's okay. No. and then in Psalm 68:6, another thing there, it says there that God sets the lonely in families.
Yes.
And again, a real joy for me is that I'm an integral part of about 4 families, and being part of their ordinary everyday lives is wonderful. It's wonderful. And, one family in particular who live in Bristol, which is like 45 minutes away from me. And it's like the mum I knew when she was 6 years old, when we lived in Taiwan together, because her mum and dad and I served together in Taiwan. And Amy was 6, and then she got older, and then she graduated and went to university. They're American. And I spoke at her wedding. And then she and her husband moved to Berlin. And I was in Berlin the day that her first daughter was born. And then her husband got a job at Bristol University. And so I was in Bristol the day with them that her son was born.
Oh.
And so, as a family, they've been in Bristol 5 years now. And we are a family. And I go every Tuesday, I go to Bristol and I look after the kids. And I do that every week, every Tuesday. And sometimes I stay weekends. We go on holidays together. We celebrate birthdays and Christmas together. We had an early Christmas, so we could be together for it, because they went back to Taiwan, which is where her husband's from. And I have a key to their house, and I have a parking spot outside their gate. And the children call me Grammy, because Amy, I'm Auntie Mags to Amy. But then when she had the children, she said, well, you can't be Auntie Mags to them because you're my Auntie Mags. So, and Great Aunt Mags is too long. And so we shortened it to Grammy. So I am Grammy to these children. And it's wonderful because when my next door neighbour, Wendy, who I'm really close to, comes round with her iPad to show me photos of her grandchildren, I get out my phone, I show them photos of Malin and Ireland, you know. Yeah. And then there's another family down in Norwich, and I have a godson there called Zephy, and he's 3 years old. And at least twice a week, he will just WhatsApp me and show me what he's eating for his tea, or show me the Lego that he's built, or just talk. He'll say, Nina, he calls me Nai, which is Chinese for granny.
Yes.
And so he's not Chinese, he's Norwich, but he goes, Nina, do you want to hear this song? And I'll go, oh yeah, I really do. And he just goes, blah, 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 you know, and you join in, you know, so he thinks that's really funny. Yeah. So the joy of having these children, because I love children, and so the joy of having these grandkids in my life as a single woman at my age, it's incredible. And then I think that perhaps the biggest joy is, because these are really big joys, but perhaps the biggest joy is, you know, in 1 Corinthians 7, Paul says there that, you know, the single person can give themselves more fully to the Lord, to knowing Him and to serving Him. And, you know, it's not that being single is superior to being married. It's just simpler and less complicated. Yeah. And so I have time and freedom to just give myself to my relationship with the Lord and to developing that and to enjoying that and to being, you know, taken by the Lord into other people's lives and into directions that he wants me to go in. And just being able to have the freedom to do that and to be responsive to him, I think that's probably on a par, if not a little bit higher, than being Grammy or Nai. But there are, I just, honestly, I wouldn't trade where I am right now for
That is
anything.
A fantastic place to end. That is a terrific place to end. What a comment. Max, thank you so much.
You're so
thank you
welcome.
for being vulnerable, for being open, for sharing your heart, sharing your life.
Right.
And thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And I hope you've enjoyed it too. I hope it's been a joy for you to listen and to listen in on the conversation. And perhaps you've learned something as well, as I think I have. In fact, actually I have. So I'll tell you about it later. Max, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
you.